Hey, Florida youth. You know that saying that goes, those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it? Well, that's a little bit about what we're going to be talking about in our Core Cadet lesson this week. Now, you may feel like it's a little bit of a history lesson, but you're going to hear two names, Dietrich Bonhoeffer and Adolf Hitler. Now, unfortunately, you know one of those names more than you know the other one. But I want to tell you a little bit, and we're going to talk about it a little bit. You're going to talk about it with your Core Cadet counselor a little bit more in class about Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was born in Poland, moved to the United States, became a pastor, but before he went back to Germany when Adolf Hitler came to power and began to spread a dangerous worldview to the people of Germany about other people. In this instance, it was the Jewish people. And so Dietrich Bonhoeffer wanted to stop the dangerous worldview that was being spread. And he was a little bit frustrated and wanted to speak to the church in Germany, who many Christians were being fooled by this dangerous worldview that Adolf Hitler was telling about. One German chancellor says, and you'll hear about this in class, one German pastor said, Christ has come to us through Adolf Hitler. They bought into this dangerous worldview that was out there. Many Christians were fooled by this. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer spoke against this. He wrote things against this. But eventually it got to the point where the Nazis didn't like him saying these things, so they forbade him to publish anything else that he had wrote. But that didn't stop him from trying to stop Hitler and the Nazis from alienating, blaming, and hurting the Jews. Dietrich Bonhoeffer got engaged, and 3 months after he got engaged, the Nazis came and arrested him, and they took him to Buchenwald concentration camp. And in 1945, at the age of 39, Dietrich Bonhoeffer was killed by the Nazis for speaking out against them. This brave young pastor gave up his life opposing the Nazi, opposing that dangerous worldview, not because he wanted to go down in history, but because he firmly believed that Jesus' teachings were true. He firmly believed that people who claim to follow Jesus can't stand by quietly and watch suffering as Hitler and the Nazi Party completely destroyed Germany, did so much to try to push that worldview over around the world. And it's the same way in our lives today. It's the same thing Dietrich Bonhoeffer would say to us. We believe that people who claim to follow Jesus Christ cannot stand by quietly and watch suffering and people wipe out another group of people. And whether in the case of Hitler, that was him espousing his dangerous worldview against the Jewish people, but also in our world today, when those people who are faced with injustice and all of this prejudice and all of these things about them, Christians can't stand by quietly and watch suffering as that happened. Dietrich Bonhoeffer spoke out against that, and because he spoke out on that, it cost him his life. I want to share one scripture with you. You won't find this in your Core Cadet lesson today, but it's a scripture we know very well. It comes from Book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 2, and you know this one very well. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The pattern of this world, the world wants you to buy into the worldview that everyone else has. And sometimes that worldview is very dangerous, as Adolf Hitler was successfully able to preach to the entire country. But one person stood against him, and in the same way as Christians, we can't sit back quietly and let that happen. So you're going to hear about him today. Make sure you learn, because it is some good history, and not only good Bible teaching, but also some good history. And we don't want that phrase to be said about us. Those who do not know their history are doomed to repeat it. Love you guys. Go get them. See you next week.